Hello, everybody. My name is Anne Levy. I am the Senior Program Manager at the Center for Faculty Development of Mass General Hospital, and I'm delighted to have with me today Dr. Jesse Jupiter to talk about his transition to retirement. Let me start by briefly introducing him. Dr. Jupiter, Distinguished Professor of Surgery and the recipient of the Hans-Jörg Wyss A.O. Chaired Professorship of Orthopedic Surgery at Harvard Medical School, began his academic and clinical career at Mass General in 1981. Although he'd already been at MGH earlier, he came to Boston in 1975 for a year of general surgery at MGH, followed by an orthopedic residency in the Harvard program, finishing in 1979. During his decades of service, Dr. Jupiter was chief of the Trauma, Foot and Ankle, and Hand and Arm Services, an internationally renowned elbow and wrist and trauma specialist. He was involved in training almost 500 orthopedic and plastic surgery residents and hand and microsurgical fellows. He was named as the first Harvard Combined Orthopedic Residency Program Distinguished Alumnus. Other honors include being president of the American Shoulder and Elbow Surgeons and president of the American Association of Hand Surgeons. So, Jesse, delighted to have you here with me today. Let me start off with the basic question. Under what circumstance did you realize it was time to retire or transition away from full-time clinical work?
I think it came to me as much in a way of chronology, looking at the time and my health and my activity level. I thought it would be a reasonable thing to start planning to retire about age 74, 75. I recall very well up, and my parents and relatives, etc., nobody worked at that age. So it's one of the things that everyone will begin to realize is people will ask you if you're retired, why did you retire? You know, you're still 75, you can keep going, because that's our mentality, okay? And then, as I'm sure it impacted others, the COVID became something of a decision-making impact, because you get to realize what retirement might be like, because the activity level of my practice and the whole way of medicine was going allowed me to spend a lot more time with my wife and then with family. And so it was like pre-training. And that's important. You have to realize that you will be spending, if you're married or if you have other relationships, you will be spending more time in perhaps a different way than you did when you were on the other side, because the first thing you learn is you're here too much. I'm not used to having you around.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things. The second thing is we all like to think about, okay, what am I going to do? One of the things is, I think, is not over plan, because that can be problematic, because unfortunately, as in life, whether that you're at control or not control. So I think it becomes what you like to do. If there are things that you want to do or thought you'd want to do, let's say you want to take a college course, maybe to do that before you retire, see what that's like, do maybe a fee, see what it's like before you retire, because then you get an idea of what's available for you as a way.
Very good. I remember in an earlier conversation you telling me that you had talked to two different colleagues about their retirement, and one of them gave you the following advice saying, oh, you have to have a plan. You can't go retire without a plan. And then the other one said, I had no plan whatsoever. I thought I'll wake up and have coffee or I won't be. And your feeling was it didn't matter which. They both were right.
That's right. The only plan you have to do is financial, okay? So you have to be able to have some understanding of your finances and how much you have available to live how you want to live. The other way is he said, I want to just get my coffee when I want and read the morning paper. I've never had a chance to do that. One of the things about retirement is it allows you to a large degree control stress. When we worked in an institution, our profession, we never completely could control things that were unexpected or in our practice or whatever. There was always an element of stress. Here, you have the opportunity to control as you like to. For example, when I get golf time, I will get golf time depending on what's available when it's appropriate for me in that day, because I'm still doing teaching, I'm still doing lecturing and research. So I want to be able to do those things, but do that at a time that's convenient for me, like this interview. It's convenient for me. The other thing is to think about, we're all cut from the same cloth. The question is can we exist without being a doctor? Can we exist being Mr.? Okay. And one of the things that might be part of planning, if you're so inclined, I believe, is what might be a hybrid model. I call it that. Where are you interested in teaching? Is there an avenue for your teaching still outside of the physical plant? That Zoom is allowed to do. So as an example, I teach our residents and fellows in the hand service every Monday morning. And I'm involved with a local residency here in Palm Beach. I go every Friday morning and teach the residents. And I'm teaching overseas to Australia, to China, etc. But that's not for everyone. But the point is, you can have it if it can be done at your own control.
Such an important piece of information, Jesse. I really appreciate that and hope people hear that loud and clear, that whatever choice you make about what you do with your time and how involved you continue to be with MGH because you have appreciated this place so much, gauge your level of comfort and stress to make a workload manageable.
Yeah, and it again depends on how much you were involved before. I mean, if I'm saying to people who were, active clinicians, but involved in teaching or research or writing or reviewing, well, then there's no reason to expect that to continue. But I suspect that many people will have some interest in some aspect of their career. I mean, we all have a lot to give back, and people will say, "Do you miss your interaction with patients?" And that's also depending on people's things. But I still hear from my patients. I still get emails, and that's enough. And by teaching and whatever, I'm relating all the things I did medically and surgically, and that's enough reinforcement to make my realization that my life was at least somewhat accomplished. And the interesting thing is, for example, I went to a meeting in Boston, actually, a national meeting, and it was extraordinary how many people, like, it's hard to believe, came up to me and said, "Do you remember me? You operated on my wrist." And then I went to and etc. And I went to my medical school 50th reunion at Yale, and at least 3 people came up and said, "Oh yeah, well, I never really got a chance. Thank you. You took care of my son or take care of my husband," or things like that. So along the way, we'll always get reinforcement one way or another in our lives. So I don't think that that's much of a decision making for me not to have that direct hands-on. But for others, that's different, and there's no reason chronologically to stop if you're healthy and enjoy that aspect of it. I will tell you, one of the great things of retirement is I have no stress.
Sounds very appealing.
Yeah, I do read the paper every morning.
That's great. What have you learned about yourself in these years of retirement beyond the fact that you are living without stress?
Well, I learned to appreciate my wife, not about myself, but my relationship with my wife even more, and my kids. Actually, we're flying to France Friday. Our daughter are coming from Fiji. She's involved with a marine biology program. I mean, other people really say they want to travel, and of course COVID was a restriction, but now it's open, and there's lots of opportunities to do things if you're active in an unusual way, bike trips, et cetera. So we've done all that, and from international teaching, we've been probably half the world. So I don't have an urge to travel so much.
I know that you were, if I remember correctly in reading about your past, you were a classics major as an undergraduate. So have you, and I know you're an avid reader, how have you spent your reading time since retirement?
I read between 1 and 2 books a week, and I've even read some books related to classics. Or recently, I read a book about Shakespeare, and then I downloaded some of his sonnets and things. So it's very eclectic, my reading. I just read a French author, Eric Vuillard, a terrific author, and I've always liked to do that. And if you like to read, you have great opportunities to do the pace.
Great. Well, you've already given a fair amount of wisdom, wise advice. Do you have any other pieces of advice or anecdotes you'd like to share with faculty at MGH who are considering their next steps?
Well, I think one of the things is you want to keep adapting, keep taking stimuli that you get from wherever you are, and realize that there may be some things that you never thought about that might become very important or influential. But rather than this idea of planning everything A, B, C in your retirement, but you do miss your colleagues to a certain degree. But because I'm involved with my colleagues in teaching and in national meetings for a few years, that's okay. They say after 25, 30 years at national meetings, you start just talking about your grandkids and other things, and not so much about your profession.
Here's one last question for someone who loves, because you love reading, really have thought about language a lot. What other terms would you use for retirement? Instead of saying I've retired, what have you done?
I told you this before. It's life cycle. Okay, so I'm in a different life cycle. It's not a negative connotation at all. It's actually another part of life that you can develop and grow into or move into different things. So I don't think it's retirement. Again, if in my case, I'm very active, a lot of sports and things like that, but I don't think it's that negative connotation of I'm just sitting back. And for the seniors, seniors are living longer and living healthier. Don't forget that there's plenty of opportunities to grow into new avenues and take advantage of things that even are directed towards seniors. We live in a resort community here, and guess what? There are so many young kids here. It's not a senior citizen or 55 and over. So we interact with a lot of younger people, and that also keeps you on your toes.